is it possible to have passionate excitement and safety at the same time? This was where the conversation went in my last Stance of Polarity call. The guest expressed how they love the passion and excitement of new connection. And then when there's the expression of desires and boundaries and honesty, essentially, it can, all of the things that are required to create safety, it can impact that passion, that excitement. Because in doing so, in expressing honesty and creating truth, it can sometimes, or at least in her experience has been, it impacts that passion and excitement because of the implications of the expression of truth. And I asked this person, well, why do you think that is? And their response was, well, it seems men aren't able to hold the truth in a way that allows for the excitement to be maintained or contained. It instead of creating a ground or a playground, a container for that passion and that creative excitement of the feminine to roam and to flourish, it can dampen it, or it does dampen it, or has dampened it, has been her experience. I think that's a shame. The place where it got to was this fear of losing the excitement if true needs are expressed, or if there's honesty for what's being desired or what's being required. And this kind of fear of rejection around being honest because of it not being received, and the potential block of intimacy that men create as not being able to receive it and not being able to hold it, not being able to deal with it. And not wanting to sound, what was the word she used? But not wanting to sound detrimental. That's not the word she used, but it's the word I'm using because I'm struggling to find the right word. But just the recognition that men aren't there yet, or at least not, broadly speaking, that some men are there, but they seem to be taken, or the men that aren't quite there yet, as in, and by there I mean, aren't in a position of perhaps emotional maturity or sovereign integrity to be able to receive that truth, to hold that conversation, to be able to maintain the safety and integrity within which the exploration and curiosity and passion and excitement can be enjoyed. That by her expressing, well, this is where I'm at, and this is what I'm wanting, and this is what I'm needing, it kind of kills the potential or the excitement that was there previously, that undefined excitement, that undefined potential. It's like, well, it could go anywhere, it could be anything, but now it's like, no, I want it to be this, and that, oh, now that excitement and that passion that I was sharing with that individual is no longer there because they feel inhibited, or they feel they can't hold that, or it's not what they want. So how do we bridge that gap? How do we invite men to be able to have that kind of conversation and hold it, and hold the boundaries and parameters to create a safe space for the woman to really drop into that excitement? I said that for me, creating the safe space doesn't detract from the passion and excitement. It gives it the space to be able to fully express itself. And that gets to be a good thing. It may not be what one of the individuals had in mind, but now it creates parameters within which there's a full potential of expression. And I wonder if part of it is, if you're a single woman and you're going to ecstatic dance, for example, you're going to dance with a man, and it turns out that they're in partnership, and that means they feel uncomfortable dancing with you now because there was this sensuality moving into sexuality, or sensual energy dripping into sexual energy, and they don't feel like they can contain that in a way that they can be in integrity. Then, well, how do we have that conversation? How can we define the parameters of this relationship, whether it be friendship or partnership or professional partnership or dance partnership? How can we create the boundaries so that it is what it is, and we can fully enjoy that and be respectful of where we've defined our parameters? And maybe it's the case that that's difficult. That's difficult for some men to hold that boundary and not let it drip into or bleed through into something else. Is tough. It requires strength and integrity, and maybe that's where men are being invited to step into. And I've touched on this in this conversation that I had with this person and in other conversations, that rather than seeing it as a chore as women, it's like, why do I have to be the one to help them figure this out? It's like, well, because you've figured it out and we're wanting to learn from you. Or if not learn, I think that's the thing. This person expressed it, and other women have expressed it as well, is I don't want to have to teach this guy how to do this stuff. I don't want to be the role of the teacher. It's like, okay, great. How can you be the muse instead of the teacher? How can you inspire rather than drag, if you will? I think that requires patience from the feminine, and seeing the value, the worthwhileness of it. That even though this man may not exactly be where you want them to be emotionally or energetically or whatever, in being able to inspire them to meet you there, you will gain so much, because it will benefit you as much as it will him. And maybe there's an apathy in there being a gap and needing to be the one to help bridge it. And that's not to take away from the sovereignty and responsibility of men to do their part in bridging the gap themselves. But one of the things I mentioned was, well, if men don't have the capacity to do it, or some men don't have the capacity to do it yet, and there isn't a safe space for them to get it wrong, or to learn, or to practice, then how are they going to get there? And so it's, well, how can we mutually create a safe space for one another so that you can learn and I can learn and we can get there together? And the challenging part of that is, in order to do that, it requires us not being triggered, not being impacted by the challenges we face and dropped into dysregulation, dropped into our unconscious programming, but to maintain our sovereignty and maintain our ability to to remain composed, to remain emboldened and strengthened and resilient and radiant and empowered and curious and playful. And this is why I share mind yoga with people. I endeavor to massage out those knots of consciousness that prevent the smooth running, the maintaining of joyful, playful curiosity, because whatever's transpired in relationship or life or exchange has come up against the knot and prevented the smoothness of freedom of movement. And so how can we undo that knot so that it doesn't become an issue anymore? And rather than having to find resolution in the dynamic of relationship, you can have a safe training ground, a safe space to deal with that issue, so it's no longer an issue, so it's resolved, and then you can drop back into the safety of your container, knowing that, okay, well, they're still trying to figure that part out for themselves, but I know that that doesn't affect me anymore, and I can maintain my playful curiosity. I can create this safe space to continue to be an inspiration and a muse, and the boundaries within which there is the safety for creative expression, curious play and exploration, and the excitement that comes with that, and maintain that safe space rather than an excitement, rather than it detract and lose. And that's the value of mind yoga, being able to have a safe space to be able to do all of that, to work out those knots, to figure out how to create safety within oneself, so that when you drop into life, into partnership, into relationship, into family dynamic, into friendship dynamic, into business dynamic, it doesn't become a problem anymore. And you're able to maintain your integrity and invite rather than teach, inspire rather than drag. I want to find a better word than that. Inspire rather than provocate. Yeah, gonna go with that. So if that makes sense to you, sorry, I got caught in my own mind there. If that makes sense to you, and I hope it does, and you've recognized this in your life and in yourself, this desire to be met by men, or as a man, desire to meet women in safe space, in integrity, in gorgeous excitement and playfulness, rather than the challenge of truth and honesty, then feel free to drop a comment. Feel free to share your experience. If you want to be part of the conversation, then let me know. I'm happy to have more people part of the conversation. If you recognize you have a mental, emotional knot that would benefit from being massaged out, drop me a message. We can go through that, and we can have a mind yoga session, have a clarity call, and figure out how mind yoga can support you. All the best, people.